Come hang with Homer, let's have a chat. Come hang with Homer, we guarantee that. Hanging with Homer is where you're at. You are now hanging with Homer.
Well, the Make Your Table is going to be us live showing people how to assemble products from our vast array of parts. So one of the things is, how did I get here? I mean, that's something every human ought to contemplate, right? So how did I get here? How did I get into this business? It was the mid 90s or 80s actually, and I was needing some income. So I met a friend he was doing a craft show, and he had some beautiful lace tablecloths. They were handmade from the Orient. This is about 86. And Raj had just been laid off as an electrical engineer. And he was selling these tablecloths to, people that wanted a Battenberg lace or a crocheted tablecloth. So I said, "You doing any good, Raj?" He said, "Yeah, I'm doing pretty good." And I said, "Think I could do it?" And he said, "Yeah, let me send you some." So he gave me a little short course on how to determine the size of a tablecloth. And all I need to know is how many chairs and the rectangle. Is it a rectangle? Is it a circle? And if you tell me it's a circle and you got like 6 chairs, you need a 72-inch round. And he gave me this little primer. So he sent me a bunch of tablecloths, and I started going out and doing shows. And they were selling okay. They were beautiful. And then he said the next week or two, he said, "My mother is taking the tablecloths and she's cutting them up and making beautiful lace collars." So lace collars take us back to Victorian age and lace adornments over sweaters and lace adornments over beautiful blouses. Think of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Think of that collar she wore. Well, in the late 80s, that became a real big fashion trend. And trends seem to come back over time like the tide. And lace and lacy adornments, trim on denim was pretty big, and then sweaters. So anyway, I took those tablecloths and I took some collars to a trade show, craft show out in Midland, and everybody was swarming around those collars. And I thought, whoa, this is pretty interesting. So they would take a collar, buy it for like $18, and put it over a sweater, and you had a whole new look. So that brought my attention and created curiosity into accessories, fashion accessories, which you can take something, add something to it, and you have a totally new wardrobe. And kind of that's the way it began as a fashion centered. And then later on, people will probably recall painting on t-shirts, painting on sweatshirts, painting on denim. Craft stores used to have maybe 2 aisles of fabric paints. So about that time, I was looking for things to adorn t-shirts, sweatshirts, and denim jackets, and we started putting charms, stampings on the jackets and adorning them. And then that led to jewelry. And then in 1990, we opened a store for people to walk in and buy their own parts and make their own jewelry. Glue. We're not talking lost wax casting. We're not talking soldering. We're talking using glue. But you could make collage jewelry. You could make pins, and then you could make some simple necklaces. So following up with the Victorian, we did a lot of hearts and cherubs, and built quite an extensive stamping line for people to make their own jewelry. So here now, I have a warehouse of 25,000 feet in Abilene, Texas, and we have a lot of parts. We have thousands of parts, and the thing about these parts is they're categorized and they're in boxes. And on a future segment, we'll take you on a tour of our warehouse. But everything has been categorized and boxed by shape, size, and what it's made, and the color, what it's made of. So in the next few weeks, we're going to introduce the maker's table. So I hire local artists to come in to use their abilities and create jewelry and create new things. So we have 3 in the building now. One of our artists actually attended Disney Art School. She's very talented in design and putting things together. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a table, and we're going to call it the maker's table, and we're going to assemble things live for you to see how we put things together. Hopefully to spur your creativity and to express ours, because the way art and the way fashion works is an expression. And somebody sees something, somebody likes something, and somebody posts something, and somebody else posts something, and then somebody wears something. So certain people in the world can wear something, and all of a sudden, 1 billion people are wanting to wear that. Recently, a very, very big pop star started promoting some bracelets and charm bracelets, and those charms became very, very popular, as you might expect. So we hope the maker's table will also feature some of our customers who would like to share what they're doing, and maybe have some new designs. So our lockets that we do, we'll be putting some of our own art inside them. We'll be adding charms to them, and we'll show you how to make some really, really unique stuff. Bolo ties, it's also known as a lariat necklace, because it's a tie, like a necktie, but it's string. It's string or extruded leather. So I looked up the word bolo, and I believe it means tie. It's a certain kind of a tie, tie. But anyway, Western Native American out in New Mexico, Arizona, places like that, used to in the day making really fine sterling silver and turquoise, real turquoise, and those bolos made it into film and movies, and Roy Rogers would wear a bolo, and it transferred into Native American Western into Western and Western shows. And then you had, the 60s was full of all kinds of Westerns, see Gunsmoke, and people adorned with a bolo tie. And then square dancing. I don't know when square dancing took off, but it took off in the United States. There's a building here that was owned by a square dancing club. There's a barbecue stand in it now, but it's got the hardwood floors. Square dancers all wore some type of bolo. It's just a very, very common adornment for a dancer, a square dancer. And they had maybe a certain look. So let's bring it up to modern times. A few years ago, a very, very popular singer was at a big event wearing a bolo, and then a bunch of singers, bunch of these new up and coming emerging country and country crossover started wearing bolos. Then you had Beyonce, who moved to Texas, and she's got Texas albums, and she has Texas fashion, hats, boots, and you have bolos, or you might have a tie, maybe a lariat necklace, but it resembles a bolo. So just recently, we also, let me tie into that with the collar tips. The collar tips were, again, from that age of make a Western shirt really sparkle, rhinestone cowboy, you're going to an event, you're going to a rodeo, you're going to a dance, you're going to dress Western. So collar tips started emerging as an adornment for the collar of the shirt, and then the shirts could take on lots of sparkle, lots of rhinestones. If you were gonna perform or be in a rodeo, you would be dressed up pretty fancy with a costume for that event. So collar tips had an emergence for us about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, about the time the Walking Dead show on AMC was really trending. There was another show that was a comic book turned into a series on AMC called The Preacher. Maybe it's longer than 8 years, maybe 10 or 12. But The Preacher was actually a comic book set in Texas, and he wore collar tips. You can Google The Preacher and you'll see his collar tips. So I was sitting on thousands of pair because the trend had kind of faded to like one person in the world waking up today saying, I need a collar tip. That's the story of some of my parts back there, is there's only one person in the day waking up saying, yeah, I need something like Homer's got. But fortunately, they can find me on the internet. Well, anyway, people started buying these collar tips. Like every day we started getting orders for collar tips. And I said, what are they doing with these things? I'm always curious, right? I found they were dressing up in costume to look like this preacher. And they were going to comic cons. Comic Con, the big one is in San Diego. But then they have all these auxiliary comic cons all over the United States. Even have one here in Abilene and San Angelo and all West Texas. And you get all these people showing up dressed like their favorite comic. Well, we were overnighting 10, 15, 20 pair of collar tips to San Diego to artists who were costume designers from Hollywood that were all going, and they all want to be like the preacher, look like the preacher. So, in this world we're in today, something can happen, as you know, chaos theory. A butterfly can flap its wings in the Amazon, it can change the weather. Well, that's the way it is with fashion. Something can emerge somewhere in the world, and somebody wears it, and it ripples even here to where we are, because we've got the parts that people can make those things with. But bolos right now are trending very, very popular because more and more people are wearing them. And I'll tell you something else that we're finding. Event centers, big event producers, like they might do huge corporate events like in Aspen, Colorado. They might do big weddings. We've sold hundreds of bolos for weddings where these people go into a wedding planner, and again, money is probably the least of their of their worries. They want a nice wedding, and they want everybody to dress Western and everybody to have one of Homer's bolos, and that's a great thing. I don't hardly they don't send me pictures of them because I'm way down the list from, hey, they don't need to send me a picture of the wedding. But we do get to see some, and it's really cool. We're having more inquiries for children's bolos. We just need to shorten the cord. And, they take them to events, they take them to weddings or rodeos and dress everybody up with the bolo. Well, our bolos are what I would say collage bolos. They're a combination of several things. It could be a stone, it could be a boot, it could be a hat, it could be a piece of metal that's just shaped a certain way. We have real popular bolo that has a little pony on it, and little pony is prancing little pony charm that we put on the front of a red cabochon at a 40 by 30, which is a standard size, and those things are really cool. One thing, there's a lot of mascots that are ponies, SMU, so it kind of fits into something they might want to wear to a game. Our bolos have been featured on Mountain Dew made a commercial. One day I get a inquiry. We need 25 bolos overnighted to to New York. Okay, all right. So I remember we don't have 1,000 bolos sitting back there ready to go. We make them by order, so we sell them finished, but we have to make them. And so I said, give me a day. We can make them. Again, we're gluing. We use E6000 glue, and we got them ready. And they gave me the address, and it was going to a commercial for a Mountain Dew, and they used our bolo with a B on it. I guess the B and the symbol of Mountain Dew. They had some. It was a rodeo kind of thing, and it's on YouTube somewhere that they had. We can talk. I could tell you about Lady Gaga. We shipped a whole bunch of collar tips over to the Super Bowl in New Orleans last year, and it was a promotion company for Lady Gaga, and one of her bands was going to be there, and they were going to, I believe, going to put these collar tips on them. So that's kind of cool. We don't know where this stuff ends up. It can take a lot of movies or sets or whatever, but none of those people don't tell me what they're doing with it. It's not germane for me to know, and they don't need me to know. So journaling, almost every therapist that I know and have read about will encourage their patients to begin to write things down, and you could call that journaling, therapy. So I listen to lots of podcasts, and they're very big on journaling. So about 2 years ago, we introduced a line of journals, and the journals are antique paper, leather bound, and all kinds of different art and designs on them. But what I found myself is the brain is very easily impressionable, and sometimes as a person growing up, it's so impressionable you never ever lose that trauma or something. So writing it down and rewiring the brain is a real function of journaling, and it's almost everyone that you talk to, the therapist will say, write it down. So we're familiar, or most people in the West are familiar with Alcoholics Anonymous, and that is a very good program to keep people from relapsing back into alcohol. But they have to change their mind, and that's called cognitive behavior therapy, CBT. And one way you can really alter your mind is to affirm who you really are and what you would like to become. So for example, for myself, I woke up about 3 years ago, and I was overweight, and my organ, all my vitals were fine, but then there were signs with glucose rising, blood pressure rising, and gut health was not good, just constant problems with the gut. So I decided to make a change. And, when we talk about creativity, we're talking about the brain. We're talking about brain health. And so I started changing all my diet, started adding a lot of fiber. I went on a program called VERTA, which is a obesity and diabetes reversal. So it's a monitored, guided program, no drugs, but a coach, and it's basically CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. But you give up numbers every day to the coach, so you kind of see where you're going. And they have a vetting process, because some people are at a certain level of diabetes. They got to do this gradually, but you can't just jump into it and reduce your carbs, or you'll end up in a worse state. But gradually, guided, things like that. So I changed my diet, I changed my movement, and I walk down on the creek. Another thing about the brain and creativity is to get fresh air, get outside, get into nature, and that explains a lot of people's that are really creative. Some of them are living in nature, and some of them lived in nature a long time. So my whole thing is to, as Dr. Lustig says, protect the gut, protect the liver, and feed the gut. Protect the liver, feed the gut. So if you feed your gut, your brain's going to, number one, get a lot better nutrients, and it's going to be excited. And your gut's going to have the biome through the fiber that you're going to be giving it, and you're going to be sharper, and creativity goes up. And I think today mental health is really one of our biggest concerns in this country. It seems that it's got on everybody's mind is how do we control violence? How do we keep violence down? And part of that is getting a hold of the person. And I think journaling is a good way to avoid, mental hang-ups. Just get it out. And you can go to a therapist or you can buy a journal and do it yourself. The modern diet in America is called DoorDash and have it delivered, okay? Well, this isn't, if you look back at our past, like 500 million years, or say, this isn't the way we got here. 100 years ago, people didn't just sit at their house and have food. So, first of all, I believe with nutrition and health, think about going and getting your food and going and getting the right food. Okay, at the grocery store, I have to walk very precariously around things that I know. I know that bakery over there looks good and all those things, but first of all, that's not going to get me to where I want to be as far as my health. And they always say shop the outer rim of the grocery store. That's where the good stuff is. Well, you got to be careful with that too, because they're always sneaking stuff in around the grocery store. But we need, number one, 25 grams of fiber a day. So when you start thinking, how much fiber am I getting? Well, normally the American diet is zero. It's zero. All your fast food, if you eat the bag, you will get some fiber. That's the only thing that's fibrous, Everything is just like not feeding you, your cells, and all of this has an impact on the human. So we got here right now by being extremely lazy and telling everybody, I deserve the Meals on Wheels, the DoorDash. And then I say you need to maybe get up and go find your own food. And that used to mean climb a tree. Okay, not bad. So you're spending some energy. That used to mean go get a gun, go shoot something. That's a good thing because you're moving. If you're not moving and getting your food, not much is going to change.
What kind of foods do you recommend? Quick fixes?
There's a really good podcast, the Mel Robbins Show, and she has a lady that doctor at the Mayo Clinic, and she's called the Magic Bullet. She's a cancer survivor, and she's a nutritionist, and she's had a heart transplant. Lady's had a lot of health issues. This woman puts her cancer patients on a very strict low-carb keto diet. So she wants to get the body to making ketones, which is optimum fuel burning for the body, the ketones. You're burning your own fuel, and you're cleaning up waste that's in your cells, which cancer is a waste, and it starts eating your, it's many things. But anyway, this woman says to eat edamame, and then they're very good for cancer nutrients, retardants in it, and then purple sweet potatoes. So I bought some purple sweet potatoes the other day, and the sweet potatoes we have in Mississippi, they're great, but they're pretty full. They're carbs, and they're pretty porous and soft. The purple sweet potato is, it's almost like it's got a little turnip. It's got a little white in the middle of it, It's a very good though, and it's got a lot of fiber. So those are two good foods, and then avocados. Avocados is a high fiber, very good fats. So, and avoid lots of white foods, starchy foods, and of course, there's not a healthy fast food restaurant that I've found that is going to get you metabolically where you want to be. So we're looking at with a pandemic with diabetes in the Western world, and it's all over where fast food and ultra processed foods have gone. Oh yeah, this is one of our HHH designed bolos that we had made. It's exclusive, and we've got our tips, really nice silver tips on an extruded leather cord. And this headband, if you can tell, it's got skull and bones on it. Well, I tell you, I bought this hat in Vegas about 3 years ago, and when I got back, I gave it to Juanita to adorn it, and we had these skulls and bones, so we put them on. I can't tell you how many compliments I've had on this hat band. I walk through TSA, they say, wow, we really like that hat band. Everywhere. I walked in Barnes and Noble, not before last, and the lady said, I really like that hat band. So we're actually going to make a hat band that you can add to a hat with the skull and bones, and then I think we're going to do some scorpions and some other stuff. So then the collar tips, we just added skull and bones to those, and they come blank, and then you can add your own charm. We've got them with scorpions, ponies, saddles and boots and guns and all kinds of things that we've added to the collar tips. The collar tips are sold in a pair, and they have a screw where you can put it into the just nudge it into the fabric so it doesn't come off. It doesn't go through the fabric. We do have another way to attach them with a clutch, with the little pin clutch that you can put on the collar tips.
Come hang with Homer, let's have a chat. Come hang with Homer, we guarantee that. Hanging with Homer is where you're at. You are now hanging with Homer.